Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This is called Pointed, and it's a 12-inch finished block. Here is the diagram, and this block consists of just one unit. I haven't done it so far in the blocks of the day. It's a new unit that I think you'll enjoy and all the different design possibilities. Here are 4 blocks set block to block. I love the secondary design. It's like it makes its own sashing. Okay, so we're going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to give you how much fabric you need and go down here first. There are 3 different piecing methods. I'm sure there's probably more, but these are the ones I came up with. The first one is paper piecing, so that's something new too for this series of videos. And I'm including the papers for the paper piecing. Here's what one looks like. There are 4 on a sheet, and we'll go and get into that a little more. Another tool I've used before is called the Corner Beam Template tool by Studio 180 Designs. Now, this is a very good tool. They have instructions for both left and right hand cutting, which I think is great. And with this tool, you cut squares and strips. You trim it down at the end to get the size that you need. The other method is using the Quilt. Here is the unit. Here it is 4 different times. This is what they call the corner beam. And Quilt calls it a kite. And if you look at other kite units, they're shaped like this, but they make a triangle. So I don't know what to call it. It's a corner beam kite. And so that's what we'll call it. But anyway, here are the Quilt dies that you can use to cut this. The dies I have listed here, you can buy each die separately, just on its own. You don't have to have this set of angles for the 6-inch cube. If you're familiar with Quilt, this is the 6-inch cube companion set angles, and you'll use shape 15 is for the center beam and shape 14 are for the sides. These are the same sides you use for the triangle and square unit. So let's look at the fabrics. We have, I numbered these patches A1, A2, and A3 because that's how they're numbered on the paper piecing foundations. So the centers are the corner being the patch A1. The white fabric will cut 10 squares at 4 inches. For the teal fabric, we'll cut 4 squares at 4 inches. And the sides we're calling patch A2 and A3. And now these sides are just like the triangle and square where when you cut them you have a left and a right hand side. The dark blue fabric, which makes this big diamond shape here, or 4 petal shapes here, will need 8 sets, and the black fabric, which goes around the edge, will need 8 sets. And remember, one set is a left and a right together. And for each of these fabrics, you'll cut 1 strip at 4 inches times 28 inches. You fold it in half with the wrong sides together and then cut your 8 sets. What I'm going to do today is demonstrate the paper piecing, which is very quick because only 2 seams, and then also demonstrate the Quilt. Here are most of our fabrics. These are all the fabrics I've chosen. I've cut these out already. This is the corner beam, and these are cut out with the Quilt, and these are the 2 sides, and you see we have a left and a right hand side. And one thing you have to pay close attention to is how you sew these sides on, because you can easily get them wrong. What I do is I look at this picture and I lay them out exactly how the picture is. And just like the triangle and square, you sew one side first, then press it, then sew the other side. But I'll demonstrate this. First, you make sure that you have the pieces in the right spot. These are easy to confuse because you can turn them like this, and that almost looks like it should work, but this is poking out here, and that won't work. So we turn these around like this. And how I remember it is if you're not looking at the picture, but I do suggest you look at the diagrams on this page. Everything, all the small points end in this corner. So if you have it turned like this, that's big. It doesn't end at the same corner. So this goes here because they start off big and it ends small here in the corner. The other thing is it makes a square. So this is sort of a square with all the seam allowances on it. I start with one side and flip it over. Then this little cutout here at the bottom, you match this little cutout here, and then pick this up and match the edge. Match that edge there. Stitch your 1/4 inch from here all the way to the bottom. Here's the stitching. It starts here and goes all the way through here. Now I'll just press the seams open. Now we press the seams open, and here's what it looks like. If I zoom into this corner, you see these don't meet. There are the little pieces sticking out here, and that's okay because when we sew the two together, we'll have a nice little point here for this corner beam to make a nice little point. Now we'll take this other part and stitch it. You flip it over, and you match this little part here, that straight part that was cut off, and you match this edge here, and then stitch your 1/4 inch all the way down and press the seams open. And here's your finished unit. Right now it measures 3.5 inches. It will be a 3-inch finished unit. So if you're using AccuQuilt, you sew everything together just like this. There's 16 of these units in the block. And what I did before I sewed these, I cut everything out. Then I separated everything into 4 stacks, and I laid them out just like this to make sure I had all the pieces cut correctly. All right, now we're going to do the paper piecing demo. On page 2 of your instructions is a sheet of 4 of these paper piecing foundations. You'll need to make 4 copies of the page because you'll need a total of 16 of these squares. When you print it, be sure you set your printer settings to actual size. And this square should measure 3.5 inches both ways. We have our 4-inch squares cut for the corner beam. We're going to use that. And then we're going to pretend this is 28 inches long because I'm just doing one demo here. It's by 28 inches. Fold it in half with the wrong sides together. Next we'll cut a square. And take this square, cut it in half on the diagonal. And when you do that, you'll have your left and your right sides. You'll have 2 of them, enough for 2 units. If you look at this paper piecing foundation, the outside is a lighter line. This outside line is the cut line. And when you cut the papers out, cut just outside that line, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. The inside lines, the dark, thick lines, are all sewing lines. So this is what we'll sew. When we sew the units together, we'll be using this outside line. And when we're doing the paper piecing, we'll be using these 2 lines here. Now your copy is corrected. This is A1. This is the corner beam unit, patch A1. This is A2 and this is A3. And that is the piecing order. So we start with A1, A2, then A3. Now we'll take our corner beam fabric, the 4-inch square, flip it over so the wrong side is up. And we're going to put it on like this. Now what I like to tell people in paper piecing, this is the back of the piece. Once you're finished, this will be on the back, and underneath here, this will be the front of the unit. And I call this the road map because it tells you what you're going to do next and where you're going. So right now we're at A1 and we're going to be headed to A2 and then we'll go to A3. So if after you've pieced something and you bring it back and you're looking at something like this, you don't know what to do next, remember you need your road map to tell you where to go. So if you flip it over, you'll know this is what you need to do next. Okay, so just keep that in mind if you're new to paper piecing and you get confused on the step, because there's a few steps, but they all start to repeat after a while. So the first thing we're going to do is I take this is Elmer's washable glue stick, and I'm going to turn this over and put some glue underneath this A1 section. You can see through the paper, and so you know where you're putting the glue. Turn it over and then glue it down. And remember, we're gluing this to the wrong side of the fabric. So we're at A1 and we want to travel now to A2. So that's this direction, and we put this where the line is facing away from us. Take a ruler, or sometimes a cardboard or a piece of paper, and I'm putting the edge of the ruler on this line. This is the line between A1 and A2. And I take and fold it up, just put a crease in it at the line. And then I'm going to fold this up like that. Take your ruler with your 1/4 of an inch mark, and you want to put the 1/4 of an inch mark right on that fold line. It's right on the fold line. Now we're going to cut this off right here. So what we're doing there is we're adding a 1/4 of an inch so we'll know where to place our fabric. Now if you can see in the video, you can see through this paper, and if you're experienced you probably don't need to do this, but this is the outside thin line, and I want to mark that line. I'm just going to mark it with my pencil. So there's the mark, and here's the extra that you cut around with. And all this area under here needs to be covered by the next fabric we put down. We're going to use this one next. So we pick this up and put this fabric down. This is A2, and with the right side facing up. Then this edge we just cut, we're going to line up with this edge. And we want to make sure that this point falls somewhere in here. So let me do that. Just match these. Now I can see that my fabric is coming down this way underneath. So I'm going to hold my finger here and then lift this up. And I can see I'm right at the edge here. So that means I need to move this over. So let's just scooch this over a little bit. This is still covered over here, and I'm putting my finger here, lift this up, and you see that there's plenty of fabric underneath there. Take the glue and glue this. I'll just go ahead and do that. Just put a dab or two of glue and hold it down, and it's glued. Now it's not going anywhere. Take this to your machine and flip this over. You'll start stitching a few stitches off of this line and stitch on this line, and then take a few stitches off the line. You'll want to lower your stitch length so you'll have more stitches per inch, and it's easier to tear the paper off. Now here's our stitching. You see we started here off of the line, stitched on the line, and stitched a little bit off of the line. Now we turn this over, and we're going to press this up. The one that you just sewed on, you press it up like this. Okay, so now it's pressed. And what you want to do now is to look and see that there's fabric underneath all of this. And we see there is plenty up here. It gets really close here and plenty down here. And that's good. We're good to go on this side. Now the only line we have left is this line, so we turn it around. And this is facing away from us, this line. Take your ruler, fold it up, and put your crease in it, and fold it back this way. And put your ruler up to cut off your 1/4 of an inch. Now you're ready for your next fabric. And you put it down like that, match the top. And then check again that you have enough fabric underneath here. So I'm going to scooch this over. You can put your glue on there if you want, just a couple of dabs. Hold that down. And you'll take this to the machine and do the same thing. You'll start a few stitches away from the line, stitch on the line, and stop a few stitches away from the line. And there's our stitches, off, on the line, and stitch off. Now we'll flip this over and press this that way. Now you have this odd looking piece of fabric. So flip it over and look at your road map, and you're going to trim it on the outside edge. I like to put my 1/4 inch mark on this line and then trim it. It's easier to line up this thick line with the 1/4 inch line here. So if we do that, just line it up and then trim it off. And then do that to all 4 sides. And there is your unit. I always start in the corner just to hold down this side and then peel it away like this. And then that loosens up this edge. And then tear it against, you tear against the stitches. Now they're all ready. This is one that was paper pieced, and this is one that was done with AccuQuilt. My favorite method is the AccuQuilt, and my next favorite would be the paper piecing, just because I don't have the other ruler. So go ahead and piece all of your 16 units, no matter how you do it, with the corner beam tool, with the AccuQuilt, or with paper piecing. And now we'll put the block together. All of the units are done. So now I'll just follow the diagram to lay out the units. We'll start by sewing the units together at the top row, the second row, third row, and fourth row. Then press your seams open and then sew all the rows together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.